riders on the train met.
Photographer Don Barletti documents migration for survival.
Why are the people in your photographs important?
They're part of history. They're part of the changing face of America. And they represent a basic human need, migration for survival. It's as old as humanity, as unstoppable as the wind, and I think frequently misunderstood, which is why I'm paying so much attention to it. To take the mask of statistics away, and to take the stigma of a borderline, a political attitude, to let you see that these are real people with names and histories, dreams, hopes, failures, tragedy, and incredible success.
Can you explain a little bit more the term you used, migration for survival?
Well, migration is the search for something to fill in for what's missing. And in a family, it might be the lack of a parent, it might be the lack of employment, shelter. It's the human circulation system of the globe, of the planet. People have been chasing the caribou or the deer or the elk in the ancient days over the horizon looking for food. Now people are chasing the almighty dollar over the horizon. So it's a basic human instinct that I don't think can be controlled by offense, by politics, by threats, by guns. People want to survive, and they will. Survival, migration for survival, is as basic a thing as breathing.
So you've been doing this over 40 years, sometimes putting yourself in peril. In fact, your camera can even look like a gun. Why are you drawn to these stories?
Well, photography is an incredible way to record the truth, to record things for posterity. I consider photographic prints documents of history. I didn't have to parachute into this incredible phenomenon of more people migrating in the last part of the last century and now. The numbers are as high as when my grandparents came from Italy to Ellis Island. So living in San Diego County, not far from the border, 70 miles north of the border, I saw people gathering on street corners in the late 70s, early 70s, mid 70s, late 80s, looking for work. But more importantly, more alarming to me, where there were farm workers camping in the chaparral and the hills in between established communities, in the canyons, in little handmade shacks and huts. And my investigation found that these are like embryonic communities. These are like the new settlers. They had stores, they had restaurants, and they had places to sleep, places to play, soccer fields. The thing they didn't have was electricity, running water, or sanitation. But the thing they did have was their dream of a toehold on the California dream.
Mm-hmm. And why did you want to tell that story?
Because I didn't think it could last. I thought it was so exceptionally out of sync with the surrounding communities. I wanted to know, okay, what's driving people to live in such desperation? Mm-hmm. One night I was on a perch above Interstate 5. The 5 Guatemalans were sleeping on bubble wrap out under the stars. And one of the men said, "We don't live like this in Guatemala. We come from Huehuetenango, Guatemala, but we have a house, we have families, we have a roof over our heads, but the thing we don't have is money. We don't have work. That's why we're here." So the desperation was something I wanted to investigate. So I left those farm worker camps and I went to the border. Well, that's like theater, that dynamic plays itself out, still does. But then deep into Mexico, almost every state in Mexico, into Central America, even South America.
I'm going to ask you about a particular image. It's the 2 children on a horse. Can you tell us about those 2 children?
My title is Chiapas Racers. It's in the southern Mexican state of Chiapas, and they're racing the freight train. I am on top of the beast, the term migrants give to this train that runs from the Guatemala border to the Texas border. So I'm on top, and out of a coffee plantation comes this galloping horse. First I just saw the nose of the horse blurred in between the greenery. And my God, I said, this is phenomenal. And kids started whistling and clapping. I instinctively set my camera, the one with the telephoto lens, to a slow shutter speed because they were galloping the same speed as the train was. And the train rocks back and forth. I thought, oh, I made a mistake. The shutter speed's too slow. I can't find the focus. I can't keep them in the frame. And I didn't think I had anything. But what I did remember was that race, that race between the beast and the beast brought whoops and few seconds of joy to the people on this train of tears, on this horrible journey to uncertainty.
And why do you want us to look at that picture?
Well, I want you to look at it for the simple beauty of that picture, the painterly look of the background, the noble look of the boy holding the frayed green nylon reins of the horse, probably his little sister flying off the rump of the horse, her curls in midair. And the fact that it's probably his daddy's horse because his rubber boot doesn't reach the stirrups. But when the eyes of the riders and the riders on the train met, you know, that was a symbiosis, a link that I'd never seen anywhere on that 3 months that I did reporting on this journey.
Tell us about the image of the man who's resting and his mouth is open, his head is back, his arms are stretched.
Well, I'm riding on top of a boxcar with a little 12-year-old boy named Dennis. We're laying flat on top of the boxcar. The train's kind of, going back and forth, and it's also slowing down a little bit. We're just inside the Oaxaca border. Dennis knew what was happening. He told me the train is slowing down because there's an immigration checkpoint coming up. He had made the trip before, been arrested and deported to the Guatemala border. Well, there were also other guys, wondering why is the train slowing down, and they're hopping from top of the train down to the couplers to the ladders on the side, getting ready to jump because they anticipate there's enforcement ahead. They weren't sure. When this one man grabbed the two railings of the end of this freight car and leaned his head back and closed his eyes. And I have the camera in my hand and I'm looking. I says, oh, it's a pretty symmetry. Okay, we got the couplers, we got the man, we got his head, we got his arms. And when he opened his mouth, this blast of emotion came right into my camera. Like, I couldn't hide behind the camera anymore because the imagery came into my head and exploded. And I had to scream at myself, push the shutter, push the shutter. And I couldn't even hear myself screaming. I couldn't hear Santo Antonio Gamay screaming because of the squeal of the steel wheels on the rails, the wind, the thunder of the iron boxcars. So I managed to hang on, one arm on the rail of the ladder and another arm with my little notebook, and I got his name, Santo Antonio Gamay, got his age. He's going to Toronto, Canada. He's from Honduras. He was a painter. He came home for a family emergency and he's trying to make his way back. So I said, Antonio, why did you have your mouth open? What were you doing? He said, I was praying that I don't get arrested and deported on the bus of tears back to the Guatemala border, like he had been 3 times before.
What was happening in the photo gift for northbound migration?
Well, one of the important aspects that migrants at the Texas border told me, and that's essentially where I started the story. People had already come north on the trains. In a shelter, they told me lots of things. Oh, it's hard, there's no water on the train. It's hard to get on the train, hard to get off. And they also told me about the food throwers of Veracruz. It wasn't as easy to find as I thought, but walking endlessly up and down the train tracks in Orizaba and Fortun, Veracruz, I did find a shopkeeper of a little trackside market, mom and pop market. And a teenage boy said, yeah, we've got some extra oranges. They're a little old, but they're still edible. I'm going to go when the train comes. So when the train horn blew, we both walked up to the tracks, and the train comes hauling ass past. And I thought he was going to throw them like baseballs and to people on top. But no, he just reached out and hands came out of nowhere as the train came by. This picture is why I do photojournalism. It has two aspects that very few of my pictures have, and that's substance and style. The substance of the picture is the clear, crystal clear orange. That's the theme, that's the story, that's the gift for the northbound migrant.
What do you hope to achieve with your work?
Well, I want to try to get people not to misunderstand why people are moving. I want them to translate the statistics and the crowing that we see from politicians, from people at the bar sitting next to you, from your neighbors over the fence. Everybody's got an opinion about migration for survival. But you know what? All of their opinions are somebody else's. It's stuff they heard on the radio or on TV or from a stump speech. Well, I'm showing you the number one subject of all of my photographs, and that's the people in those pictures. Yeah, I'm the photographer, but I didn't birth this picture. The people in it did. And secondly, the most important author of every photograph I take is you, the viewer. And when I show you pictures of people in their home villages and on the north side of the border and experiencing this incredible drama of crossing over, when I show you the old man with a cane saying, yeah, I want to go to the United States to see my son one more time before I die, maybe you'll say, well, I misunderstood.
And what does it mean to you, Don the photographer, to capture these images? How does that affect you?
Well, I consider myself in some respects a historian. So it's my obligation and my ability and my desire to update our history constantly. But you know, the story that never ends, and it will never end, and I don't even know when it began, is migration. It's a human trait that must be recorded.